Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be reacting to another Necrit video. We haven't done one of these in a little while. It's actually going to be one of the MMO videos that he did about a year ago. We're going to be doing the legendary loot of Riot's MMO according to lore. So this is going to be like a 45-minute video from Necrit. So sit back, relax, grab a snack, do whatever you want to do. We're going to react to this. I decided to do this because we know a little bit more about, like, you know, the world of Runeterra now that we've reacted to a lot of League of Legends champions and things like that. So I figured it might be a good time to come back to one of these MMO videos that Necrit created. And I'm really hyped about the MMO. I know it's not going to be for a very, very long time, but you know, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about the possible legendary loot that we might find in Riot's MMO for League. So let's go ahead and sit back and relax, guys. Here we go.
MMO videos, Riot MMO, Riot MMO, Riot MMO videos, multiplayer Riot MMO, Riot MMO.
That's the comments, I assume.
Loot. Arguably one of the driving forces of MMOs, and it doesn't matter if it is an MMORPG or an MMO shooter. Loot is something everyone celebrates their
Loot can
joy
make or
over.
break a
Might
game.
be for two separate reasons.
Like that.
Some people like having big numbers on their characters. Sure, it is a key progression for MMOs, but for a lot of others, me strongly included, it's all about the visuals. I simply want to show off the achievements of my character, so after I get some good loot,
You want to look cool?
it better look good.
Yeah.
In fact,
true.
that's exactly what my MMO journeys have been about. I care about the appearance of my character a lot, Classic Wrath being a perfect example. You see, since the original Burning Crusade, I have always played a Paladin. So naturally, with Classic, I got one to max level on my home EU server. But Blizzard also brought up the fresh servers, where everyone would start as level 1 and everyone would be on a leveled playing field as the next expansion comes out. This is something a lot of people didn't believe would be that popular. Until it was so popular, it was burning Blizzard spaghetti servers. See, people thought Blizzard was only releasing awful games these days, but not only did they release one amazing queue simulator, but they released two. Well, I quickly realized that there was no way I was gonna play on a fresh server. Right? Well, it turns out prime time for EU is when US is asleep. So I bypassed the queues by making a character on the US servers, and my leveling was a breeze.
That's smart.
And here's the reason why I'm even telling you about this. When I was deciding which class I wanted to play, I thought about which class would be played the least so that my loot would not be contested. Well, in Wrath, that would be the Shaman. But if I wanted to play a Shaman as the Alliance, I would have to play as the Draenei.
What? What's going on?
Visuals matter to me. I can't play a character that looks awkward. But thankfully, in Riot's universe, the armor and weapons are badass.
Yeah, I agree.
We already had a look at the world of Runeterra. We also talked about all the existing
We watched that one and we watched that one.
I showed you the greatest
We watched
villains
that
and
one, I
bosses
believe.
we will inevitably get to see. And now it's time to show you the final piece.
Yeah, this is the one that I haven't watched yet.
Loot revealed by the lore of this universe. And oh boy, be ready for some glorious items.
I'm excited.
This video will be split into two halves. The first half of the video will talk about all the armories of all the different regions. And I'll show you what their typical armor looks like.
That's cool.
With the second half of the video being the juicy one. Because I'll show you some legendary weapons from this universe. But I will also show you some real 3D models of the weapons which I pulled from the Ruined King game. So we'll be able to have a look at some real models that tease what we could see in the MMO.
That's true, that's cool.
But first, let's go region by region and let's have a look at the typical armories.
Alright, here we go.
So, let's start with the good, totally not racist boys of Demacia. With Demacia having the classic white castles and knights.
I do like Demacian armor.
That's exactly what we should expect.
It looks pretty
here.
cool.
Besides the rugged appearance at low levels, which we should expect everywhere, the armor of the Dauntless Vanguard is just about the most iconic here.
Yeah.
Being made of petrified steel, it is naturally pale and resilient to magic. At the lower ranks, it is a wall of silver steel. But at higher ranks, their armor has some golden outlines.
That looks pretty cool.
Their sergeants also have different helmets that stand out. And depending
Maybe
on
a little
what your
basic
job in
though.
the military is, the armor has totally different variants. There is one for the horse riders, there is also a lighter version for the trekkers, there is also a version for the raptor riders.
That looks cool.
This one also has a cool elite variant, and you can see it in greater detail in the official concept art.
See, like, that's pretty awesome.
So if you're a lover of shiny armor, you're going to appreciate these. Even their cloth armor is just lighter version.
Yeah, Lux's armor would be cool.
That shows you how much Demacians love armor. I mean, they even armor up their hawks. But Demacia also has the classic scouts hiding in bushes. So they also have the classic ranger outfit.
They got a lot of variety.
They also have the swift-footed duelists with light armor.
Fiora's armor is cool.
Of course, then we have the mage seekers. As we mentioned in the last videos, these are the guys hunting down mages. The most iconic part of their gear are the half masks. That's what indicates that you belong into their crappy cult. But all of them also wear long blue coats and a trinket called the Grey Mark. This piece of petrified stone absorbs magic, which comes in handy.
That's crazy lore that I did not know.
A hidden mage. While some mage seekers have fancier masks than
that's
others,
cool artwork.
We really should mention the shittiest person in all of Demacia, the leader of the mage seekers, Lord Eldred. Who not only has the fanciest mask of them all,
his armor looks cool.
So insecure about himself that he carries 2 Grey Marks.
Oh yeah, I see that now.
The seekers are not the only ones with unique outfits. Near the mountains where we can find dragons.
The
local Demacian armor is resilient not only to magic, but also fire. That's why their variant of the armor is red. And it is simply called the Dragon Guard armor.
I think I would like that armor too. The red's cool.
Lead us to the armor of the highest value in all of Demacia. The armor of the Royal Court. And
I mean, Jarvan.
About its 3 iterations. This armor is fully golden, unlike the typical silver Demacian variants. One type of this armor is worn by Barret Bevel, one of the greatest Demacians who ever lived. His story is awesome, but unfortunately it's not really important for this video.
Oh, dang.
What is important is that Barret was the greatest Demacian. He died during the battle at the Gates of Mourning while protecting his nation. As a result, during his burial ceremony, his armor was reforged into a container for his ashes.
Oh, cool.
So the golden armor was turned into this.
His urn. Basically,
I don't think we're gonna wear that in the MMO.
That's crazy.
The second variant of the Golden Royal armor.
I mean, Jarvan the Fourth is crazy.
This combat
armor like the black.
Is passed between the leaders of Demacia. Here, you can even see it being worn by his own father. And you can see that it was forged in the image of the dragons that once threatened the lands of Demacia. I highly doubt it would be lootable because Jarvan is not an evil man and he is actively wearing it. But I still wanted to mention it because it looks cool and it could definitely inspire another.
It could possibly be like
and then there
cosmetic
is the
thing.
Third variation, the armor of his now dead father, King Jarvan III.
Dude, King Jarvan III
This is
thick.
probably the
Look at him.
heaviest armor in all of Demacia.
I was gonna say.
I really love this image because here Jarvan looks like a space marine from Warhammer.
True.
But at least it shows you that Demacia is not only all about silver. They also have gold. Fun fact, the Crown Guard family is wearing a special variation of the armor which has comically large shoulder pads. Garen is part of this family.
His doesn't look too bad, but hers does.
When it comes to the weapons, there is not much to add here. Demacian weapons are
Swords and
minimalistic
shields.
and shiny.
Yeah.
So, let's move on to Noxus.
They still look good.
Noxus has the exact opposite of Demacia. Instead of bright and
red
shiny,
and black.
They are dark and bloody.
Yeah.
If you like big plated
red and black
that
armor
is not shiny, you're gonna like these guys quite a bit more. Here, the vast majority of the armor comes from the Trifarian Legion.
Okay.
It is dark with a lot of hard edges and occasional silver lining. You can also notice that oftentimes this armor does not have sleeves, because Noxians are overly aggressive and they don't want to limit their offense. But not all of them. For example, Captain Farron has a type of armor.
I don't know if this is my kind of armor.
Anyone.
Personally,
and yes,
but
without spoiling anything, during Arcane, if you look into the background, you may find even more Noxian armor.
Oh, that's
cool.
cool.
There is also this interesting variant.
Oh, but see, that armor looks cool.
Plated with a winged helm. This one looks different because it is actually an ancient Noxian who was brought back using blood magic. So perhaps we will be able to get something like this in the tombs beneath Noxus.
Yeah, see, that looks cool.
Now, when it comes to light armor and cloth, Noxian spies often use leather with occasional plate armor. This is also used on the battlefields by those who are confident they don't need to use heavy plating to protect themselves.
That sword looks cool.
But really, it is the casters who are going to get the most style out of Noxus. The Noxian cult of Hemomancers use the black jacket with the crimson ropes.
I do like that look. Like the Vladimir people.
They swap the jackets for more plating because, well, it's Noxus. With the Noxian officials sometimes ditching the crimson cloak entirely for a full black imperial
Yeah, like
look.
the black
So
with the
even
red
as a
cloak
caster, even
might
if
be
you
cool.
are not going to be wearing plated armor, you are still going to appreciate Noxus. When it comes to their weapons, well, Noxus does have massive weapons of dark steel,
Yeah.
which often match the Noxian architecture with the hard edges.
Oh, the bow and arrow looks
But
cool.
Noxians also
Crossbow
have a
as
special
well.
kind of a weapon, the runed weapons. Noxian rune weavers are able to weave runes into their blades to enhance them.
Right.
Sometimes these runes make the blades lighter, so that you can one-hand a blade that is
See, I
bigger
like
than
that kind of
yourself.
armor. Actually,
And
looks kind of cool.
other times, the runes simply make the weapons indestructible. So just know that League does have a canonical reason for you to be wielding oversized weapons.
Right. Okay.
Noxians also have suicidal bombs. I'm not sure if that's gonna lead into fun gameplay. So now let's move into the Freljord. Here
Okay,
we
the
all
Freljord.
know what to expect. Either you are wearing
I don't think they're
going
gonna have good armor, are they?
or you wear nothing.
Yeah.
This entire region is pretty much made of leather armor.
Yeah.
But at least it comes in different styles.
Okay.
The other
Let's
Rosens
see.
turn it into blue cloaks with white fox fur
The blue
elements.
cloaks are
The
cool.
Winter's Claw stay closer to the brown elements, but at least the shamans of the Freljord
Oh.
give it a twist. They theme their
I didn't think
armor
about that.
after animals.
Yeah.
Be it a mammoth with massive tusks on his shoulders, a wolf with the amazing wolf shoulder pads,
Okay,
or
I take it
even
back.
an elf wearing their bones.
Like the animal
With
aspect
that
could be
said,
cool.
Some individuals, usually those of a higher rank, wear actual metal armor. But because it's difficult to
Trend,
harvest
yeah.
metal in all the frozen landscape, and because metal tends to be freezing cold in this climate, it is rare to see people wearing it. However, up in deep north,
I mean, Lissandra's armor.
Lissandra's army of the Druglorn are clad in metal plates.
That's
Just like
actually cool. I
Lissandra,
forgot
they are
about
wearing
that.
helmets shaped in the image of the Watchers, which they are holding back.
Yeah, see, that looks
Even
awesome.
they are not going to be the most iconic armor of the Freljord.
Ooh, who else?
I can almost guarantee you
Ornn?
that Riot's MMO will have a set themed after the Hearthblood. The Hearthblood
Oh,
are
the
the people
Hearthblood.
who worship the demigod Ornn,
Oh.
with Ornn being a godly blacksmith. This demigod is the one who crafted the massive vault door which Braum is using as his shield. And all you need to do is to peek into Ornn's forge to get an idea of what the armor is going to look
Yeah,
like.
what do we got in here?
A lot of ram thematics with aspects of a volcano. In
Okay.
fact, in the Ruined King game, you can find what a hypothetical shield made by Ornn would look like.
Okay.
Ornn
I mean, it
is
looks
simply
kinda
far
weird.
too iconic for this region, so expect at least one fire ram based
Yeah,
set.
that makes sense,
But
though.
here I also very quickly want to add one more thing. Even though these people are rarely talked
That
about,
does look
the
cool.
Freljord also has its own scavengers. And it's a shame that these are rarely mentioned because their armor looks insane.
Yeah, that does look really cool.
And when it comes to the weapons, Freljordians
Like, that
have
armor is too
very
basic.
barbaric tools. Loads of axes, swords, and wooden shields.
Yeah.
With an occasional primitive weapon from one
I'm gonna pause. Not really anything you're gonna get really good, like, weapon-wise from the Freljord, are we?
of the trolls. Nothing too out of the ordinary. However, the Freljord is also known for the true ice weapons. We
There's
talked about
that,
these in
I
the
suppose,
past. These
right.
weapons are made out of magical ice that literally kills you if you touch it. That is, unless you are an iceborn, in which case it will still hurt you a lot. And these true ice weapons can have all sorts of shapes and sizes. From swords and axes to bows and flails.
Any cool weapons,
But
though?
that's it for the Freljord.
Yeah, I was gonna
so
say, there's
now
nothing too
let's have a look
crazy.
at Ionia.
All right, this is where the cool stuff is going to come from.
Most people are wearing simple robes.
I feel like.
And depending on what class you are playing, the robes can vary heavily.
The
blade dancers following Irelia wear slightly reinforced robes. They also wear these reinforced hats, which can be used as shields when banding together.
Those look cool.
Yes, this is not an insect, these are blade dancers. The field musicians also wear some
That's who I'm gonna be.
This is definitely not gonna be the coolest light armor here.
Whoa, take that back.
Is gonna go to the Kashuri Armory.
Oh.
Here, the one simply known
the
as
Maker.
the Maker
is
making legendary weapons and equipment.
Wow.
Which certainly does have a unique style. And yes, the very popular League of Legends champion Jhin is also wearing a set made by the Maker.
Yeah, that armor set's
cool.
cool.
We can't forget about the Blade Masters. The Blade Masters of Ionia are known for their very wonky.
I mean, you can have a lot of like ninja clothing.
You can see one on
like
Yasuo.
Shen, Yasuo.
You can see two of them on his brother Yone. And even Master Yi, in his fully golden armor, couldn't afford to not have at least slightly wonky shoulder pad. Speaking of which, all the Vuju Blade Masters wear helmets with the green lenses.
Yeah.
These allow them to see what is happening in the spirit realm, so I wouldn't be surprised if
I didn't know
one
that.
of these weird helmets was obtainable in the game.
That'd be really cool.
Again,
it looks cool in my opinion.
Iconic. But don't worry, we can find some heavy armor even here. While normally the Ionian ninjas are wearing light armor, Shen and Zed are two types of
so Shen and Zed
ninjas. With Shen wearing the classic Kinku blue colors, and Zed wearing the red colors of the Shadow Order. But even that is not it. We also can't forget about the Temple Guards.
Okay, we've seen that before.
Wearing the most badass armor in Ionia.
It reminds me of that armor. Reminds me when we roll it back. If any of you know the guards in Star Wars that like guard the Emperor, it kind of reminds me like that.
And when it comes to the weapons of Ionia, it is all blades and sharp objects that resemble living things. Next up, let's delve into Piltover and Zone.
Okay, we didn't really get into the weapons there.
Because we can't get closer to just real life.
Yeah.
Anything from the 20s to 60s is in fashion here.
Piltover might have some cool
when
stuff.
It comes to the light armor. But even that has a cool twist
like Hex
here.
Tech, maybe?
Because Piltover and Zone are based on technology, sometimes you can find some really great examples of proper tech wear. With the Pharaoh's family being the best example.
Yeah.
Here they are wearing a straight up
I feel like
Tesla
they
suit.
would just have regular
And
clothing.
Here, one of the leaders of the Pharaoh's family has a very good armor set, where you can see all the hard labor on their shoulder pads. This is definitely one of the more unique armor sets.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy looking.
And of course, in Zone, all of this gear is gonna be slightly more grungy.
Yeah.
Or, at times, horrifying. But the fun will probably begin when we start looking into the augments. Because augments are not only for the fanatics, they can also be worn fashionably. And I can't wait to see all the different augmented armor sets.
Yeah, that would be the thing to come from like Piltover and Zon.
Don't look into the forges, I'll tell you that much. But really, all the heavy armor goes to the Wardens, the heavily armored police force of the city.
Cool.
However, some of the Barons of Zone may be teasing some
there's some cool stuff here.
When it comes to the weapons of Piltover and
it's very
Zone,
stylish.
Well, it's anything that can be engineered. So probably primitive guns, explosives.
Oh, the weapons would look really cool from Piltover.
Here we're going to Shurima. Shurima is going to be very simple too. Either you are from the desert,
gold,
or you're from the capital, or you are from Ikathia. In the desert, you can find a lot of primitive technology, so don't expect much there. Although some of the raiders' gear can be appealing at times.
That does look cool.
But from the civilized areas. The Chronomancers show us a good bit of what caster armor from Shurima could look like.
I mean,
we can also find more caster's armor
that
on
looks cool.
Acolytes, but even more in the
It's a lot of gold, right, from Shurima.
In fact, I can show you quite a few good examples. Shurima really likes to wear cloth after all. Those
cloth and gold.
rogues may prefer some of these leather sets. But when it comes to something heavier, Shurima's golden army comes to the rescue.
I think the golden army
They are
armor
big
looks
fans
really
of
cool.
Gleaming golden armor. Though they are not as heavily armored as someone like Demacia. We could also mention that even though Icathia was utterly destroyed by the Void, their kingdom used to have soldiers that look like this. So should we ever delve into some of the tombs in Shurima,
I mean, that's
maybe
pretty cool
we can
looking.
Find something like this.
That's pretty cool looking.
Yes, this is also the type of armor that Jax is wearing.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to their weapons, it is golden spears.
Lots of spears. I was gonna say lots of spears.
With occasional scimitar. However, some people are using the Void as a weapon against itself.
Kaisa?
So that's where we get these. I wouldn't be surprised
some
if Riot
Void weapons would be
gave us one of these
cool.
weapons, but it would have to be endgame.
Yeah.
I really love the concept of this kind of a weapon.
Because that Void weapon would be
honest,
pretty powerful.
A full set of Void corrupted weapons sounds like really great raid loot.
Oh, that does.
Let's
True.
very quickly mention Targon. Most Targonians don't wear much. But when they decide to wear something, it is usually
Leona's
in the image
armor.
of their religion.
Diana's
the
armor.
Solari are clad in more of a golden armor,
Right.
since it is themed after the sun. They are also very defensive people, so they also use giant shields.
Okay, yeah.
With the most iconic soldier of
Lots
them
of pointy
all,
helmets.
probably being Leona, but I prefer the Daylight Spear, Ravoon. And obviously, just like their armor, their weapons are also themed after the sun.
Yeah, I mean,
In
that
fact,
the
you can
weapons
see
would be
weapons being
cool.
forged here by the Sun Forger.
Giant shields.
The Lunari, on the other hand, wear more of a lighter armor.
Yeah, I don't know
Here
what
we
they
can
would
get
have
good
really.
examples of Caster's
That
gear.
would be cool.
And here you can see something more of a rogue's.
That's like a rogue assassin,
with Diana
yeah.
herself wearing just
Like
about
her
the
crescent
heaviest
blade.
armor the Lunari can offer.
Her crescent blade's
It's
crazy
not
cool,
much, but it's an honest work.
my opinion.
When it comes to their weapons, it is curved blades.
Yeah.
Because you know
See, I
they
like that.
resemble the moon. And in some rare cases, the Lunari can also
hell
summon
yes.
celestial weapons from the cosmic realms.
True.
So when it comes to the end game, I wouldn't be surprised if the Celestials gave us one of these weapons.
Oh, that would be
Yes,
so
these
cool.
are actual canon Celestial weapons. And they are all guns. But besides these, if you'd like to see some more iconic sets, we have the Warriors of Rakor, who resemble the classic Spartans.
Okay.
The Herald of the Dragons is wearing a very interesting mask.
That is a crazy
the Goat
mask.
people have their own gear. But most importantly, we better get an armor set themed after the celestial aspects. These creatures are just
That would be
so
too
damn
cool, I feel like. I don't
Next up,
know.
we should also mention Bilgewater.
Okay.
For the most part, it
Pirate
is just
gear.
pirates,
Yeah.
guns, cutlasses,
Pirate
corsair
stuff.
clothing. But besides the normal pirate wear, we can also mention the religious Buru worshipping the god of
with a
motion,
Laui.
Nagakeboros. Their entire aesthetics are themed on Aztec
Green.
stone.
Lots of green.
At least that's what it comes to
Green
the
and gold.
heavier armor. If you'd like to see some caster's armor, be ready for tentacles. Loads and loads of tentacles.
Okay.
But I'll tell you one thing, I really want to see an armor set themed after Nautilus. Can you tell I like plate armor? Anyway, let's finish this
Okay.
first half of the video with the last place. The Shadow Isles.
Okay.
Obviously, before the Shadow Isles were the Shadow Isles, they were the Blessed Isles. That's where
Right.
most of the design will come from.
Okay.
Of course, we know that the Sentinels originated on the Blessed Isles. So all of these light
Sentinel
build
armor
sets
looks
come from
cool.
Here.
Yeah.
Also, before we get into the darker stuff, I can show you all of these guys who show us some uncorrupted
Oh, that's from the
light sets.
Gwen's party that she
But
went
then
to.
things get dark. This place has a lot of interesting light armor, with my favorite being the set of the Rekindler. There is something so simple and yet so cool about this one.
Yeah.
I
looks
also
good.
really want to see a set themed after one of the spirits of death. This would be a great
That
one
would be
for
cool.
casters. But then of course there were a lot of people who came here to vanquish the dead. And eventually they would be claimed by the undead as well. And
I don't know
that's
which
where we
one would
can
have
get
my
these
favorite
cool
so
sets
far,
from.
to be honest.
But also, the Shadow
I don't know,
Isles
maybe
are riddled by
Demacia?
the soldiers of Kamavor who once raided this place. Some of them wear armor themed.
Oh, see,
after
that
the
armor's
dragons of
badass.
Kamavor.
Like, I like
But
that.
others come from
See, yeah, I like this, like, all black armor.
the Iron Order wearing
Looks cool.
dark skeletal sets. But that's really it when it comes to the kinds of armors that come from
Okay,
this
we moving on to
universe.
weapons.
Of course, I could keep going, but there is only so much time we have for
Like,
a
more
video.
detail about weapons?
So now, let's get into the far more interesting part. And let's talk about some very specific items which we will see. in
Specific
Riot's
items,
MMO.
okay.
Whether we'll be able to loot them or not is a whole separate conundrum. For example, in the past, Blizzard knew that Frostmourne was so legendary they couldn't just give it to players and let them run around with it.
So what did they do?
Not when the lore dictated that there could only ever be one Lich King.
Right,
so
okay.
when the players finally defeated the Lich King, Blizzard didn't give them Frostmourne, but they gave them a weaker version of it called Shadowmourne. But then 10 years later, everyone was able to run around with the shards of the Frostmourne, so I don't know what the logic was. Anyway, the point is, I am going to show you items that canonically exist in
Darken
this universe.
weapons? Interesting.
There are no buts or ifs. These legendary items exist in the game.
Okay.
And to make things even more interesting, first I'll cover all the legendary items which we are unlikely to get, though Riot may still give them to us for the sake of it being cool.
Okay.
And then we'll get into some proper loot.
Okay.
So first, let's mention Drakebane. This legendary weapon of the Demacian kings was designed to slay drakes.
I mean, it looks
It is a hybrid
kind of weird.
between a spear and a sword that can extend itself.
Kind of looks like a harpoon
The
too.
art of fighting with it is only really known to the Light Shield dynasty. And when wielded in combat, the weapon is just as dangerous to its wielder as it is to the enemy. And Jarvan only ever pulls it out when
not my
things
favorite.
really get serious.
Not my favorite weapon so
I
far.
doubt we will ever be able to get this legendary spear.
I mean, you
but
never know.
we are most likely going to see it in action in the MMO. Also in the category of legendary, likely unobtainable weapons, we have the legendary gloves of Nezuk. Long story short, a very long time ago there used to be an ascended warrior who was trying to figure out how to defeat the void monsters. His name was Horok. Over time he figured out that he can use the void against itself, and so he infused his glove with voidy energy. This created a weapon known as the Netherblade of Horok. A magical blade that was mounted to his wrist, which could cut through just about anything.
Cool.
Years later, Horok died, and many centuries after that, his tomb was looted by the champion known as Kassadin. As you can see, this is what the Netherblade looks like.
Okay.
However, many years before Kassadin picked up the Netherblade of Horok, there was another ascendant called Nezuk who raided the tomb as well, and he stole the other glove. Eventually, Nezuk died too, and Nezuk's tomb was raided by Ezreal.
Okay, that's what it was.
So Ezreal and Kassadin are each wielding a glove, which make a complete set, and together they are wielding power which even they probably don't comprehend. But because both of these champions are good guys,
especially
I
Ezreal,
doubt we are going to be able to steal their gloves.
Okay.
And this is where we can also mention the Hammer of Orlon. This one is very crucial for the story arc of Poppy. Poppy is on quest to
I don't know anything
find
about
the
this.
rightful owner of the Hammer of Orlon. Someone who could fully unlock the hammer's potential, without knowing the fact that she herself is the rightful owner of the hammer. And that what she can do with the hammer is not normal at all.
I've never been a fan of like hammers
hammer
in games, to be honest.
Destroy a beloved character. That's why I don't believe we will be able to get the Hammer of Orlon. Lastly, we could also mention the weapons of the Aspects.
I want the Crescent Blade, man.
Blade. It's simple. I don't believe Riot is going to allow us to fight a decently friendly fan-favorite champion such as Leona.
Yeah, her sword would be cool too, the Zenith Blade.
I could keep going. Nearly half of the champions in League of Legends are holding interesting weapons.
True.
But half of them are the good guys. So I doubt we would just randomly be able to take their things.
So we got to focus on bad guys' weapons?
Let's instead have a look at the bad guys.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Now we are going to have a look at the items which will likely appear in the MMO, and for which it is only up to Riot whether they decide to let us obtain these items. Here, above all, we have the legendary sword and shield of Commander Ledros. Ledros played a big role in the story of the Ruined King, but not big enough to prevent us from looting his weapons. So I truly would not be surprised
I still need to play that game.
able to get them in the MMO. Especially since Ledros was the Ruined King's most powerful
Diego's sword would be pretty cool.
The sword stands out because it was broken in half, but it was reforged by unholy magic, with the shield being reforged by crystallized death. Fun fact, you can find Ledros with his fully 3D modeled weapons in the Ruined King
very
game.
cool. You literally get to see it.
Will be quite the beauty to behold in the MMO.
Oh, that's awesome.
There has to be some kind of a legendary weapon crafted by
I mean, yeah,
with one
that'd
good
be so
example
obvious.
already existing in the lore. Remember how in WoW people went on a legendary quest to forge Thunder Fury?
No.
Or at least it was epic back in the day. I really want to see us do the same, but with Ornn forging the weapon.
Okay, yeah, I think
fact,
like you have to have something cool from Ornn.
Once. In the lore, Ornn forged himself some tools. A spade, a hammer, and a fork. Later, after a battle with his brother Volibear, he threw all the tools besides the hammer away. According to a legend, the fork landed in the oceans somewhere in the east.
Don't tell me we're gonna get a fork.
Merking picked it up and he used this mighty trident to rule the oceans. That's how legendary Ornn's weapons are. He literally made himself a fork, which was so powerful mortals could use it to rule the world. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to find this very fork in the game.
Okay.
So please, Riot, we need one of Ornn's weapons.
Fork would be cool,
and
sure.
Here is where we can also mention the Vuju blades. I don't think there is going to be a legendary quest behind these or anything like that. I believe by one way or another we will be able to get a Vuju blade and it will just have some flavor text. But I mean, they look cool. Wanted to give you a context behind these weapons. You see, the greatest bladesmiths around the world have a way to enhance their work. They would forge a blade, write a poem, and they would bring it to Doran in Ionia. Master Doran would then take these blades and the poems and he would plant them in a hidden place known as Mistfall. After planting them down, he would wait for an entire year.
Look at all these
During this
weapons.
time, the local spirits would bless the blades and greatly increase their power. This is how the great Vuju blades are forged. And I believe one of these blades with this unique history will be found.
Yeah, that would make sense to put that in the game.
And lastly, before we get into the big ones, there is an idea I had, which I really hope Riot is gonna steal.
Okay.
You see, one of the big bad guys we are gonna fight is going to be Sion, a legendary warrior of Noxus.
He would probably be annoying.
Again, using blood magic. The cool thing about him is his metal jaw. The jaw is actually the crown of King Jarvan II.
Right, I knew that.
Sion had killed. So when we get to fight Sion, I would love it if he dropped the crown of King Jarvan II.
I mean,
and we could wear it as an actual helm.
That would be a
cool touch to Sion's loot.
Yeah, that would be cool as like a cosmetic for beating the boss of Sion.
Show you, there is something else I want to show you. Something which you won't be able to find anywhere on the internet. And I know it because I was looking for it. And I couldn't find it anywhere.
What is that?
I did it myself. I went to the Ruined King. Which is a game now available on Steam, which depicts a story that actually happened in the universe of Riot's MMO.
Right. I still need to play it.
I went through the game files and I pulled out all the weapon models.
Cool. Yeah.
Now,
let's take a look at all of them.
You have 6 party members, each of which is using a totally different weapon. It's kind of like how weapons work in something like Diablo. And because it is an RPG game, the weapons have different models. And here's the kinds of weapons I am going to show you. Yasuo is using swords. Rom is using shields.
His giant shield.
Ari is using orbs. Misfortune is using pistols. Spike is using daggers. And Ilaoi is using idols, which is basically oversized trinkets.
I was gonna say, it's a big bucket.
Let's start with the swords, shall we? Feel free to pause at any time to check these out.
Okay, yeah, let's actually take a look. I mean, the kinds of different swords that Riot could do in the MMO to give everybody... Because, like, the biggest thing for me in MMOs, personally, as of late, if I've ever tried any newer MMOs, I feel like you can't have a game where everybody looks exactly the same, right? Like, if everybody does the same boss, you can't have everybody coming out looking exactly the same with the same set of armor. So you have to have tons and tons of variations. And this is just a little glimpse of like the kinds of variations they could do for just swords. And I mean, like they could do like hundreds, I feel like, different variations. I mean, these are all really cool. I mean, like this one in the middle is kind of sticking out a little bit, but there's a lot in here. Like this blue one's cool, the green one over here, the red one, the red and black. Yeah, like they all have very cool designs to them. Like I would use any of these.
See how a lot of the swords are themed after certain regions. But some of them are named swords, which we will probably see in the universe. At the bottom, we can see Hextech Gunblade and Stormrazor. And in the middle, you can find Mana Moon, Muramana, and
I
Doran's Blade.
don't know which one he's pointing
Next
to.
up, we have the shields.
Ooh, the shields. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I don't generally use like sword and shield kind of characters in the games that I play for MMOs, but, you know, I mean, it depends on how the MMO plays, but like, yeah, a cool shield for sure.
The shields are carried by Braum, who is a very big guy carrying a very big shield. So, of course, all of these are a bit oversized.
Is this a Poro one?
I also found out that some of them did have recallers, which, to be fair, is standard for any RPG game these days. So I included them
like
here
these
too.
Two.
Anyway, here we can point out the shield of the Poro King, Doran's shield, Randuin's Omen, and as I mentioned before, even here we got a shield themed after the demigod Ornn. Next we have the magical orbs. The game calls this kind of a weapon a focus. These are obviously
the 20-sided die down here.
And in Ruined King,
that's cool.
You can see that a few of them have comical theming.
That's actually really cool.
For example, you can see a ghastly Poro, a Poro snack, and even a D&D dice.
Yeah.
Then we have the guns.
Oh yeah, like the
I
guns.
love how even the guns are themed after regions. For example, I would have
like
never expected it, but this is what a gun from Demacia would look like.
Okay,
and
yeah.
You can also see that the game has 3D models for a void-corrupted pistol too.
Right over here.
Next, we have the daggers. From these, I believe only one is a named item, which many of you may recognize from League. And that is the Duskblade of Darkthar.
I like this
one. The
one.
rest may be just random daggers
the black one
around Runeterra, but they do look amazing.
I mean, these are really cool designs, all of them.
We have the idols. You can think of these
oh my God,
as
this fish one.
That show us what offhands could look like in this universe.
Yeah.
But if Riot allows us to play as a priest of Buru, then we may straight up use
Poro
these
ones
as giant hammers.
You could have just like a giant Poro like
one
collection.
Of these idols is themed after Poros.
Yeah.
But I can mention that this one is known as Corin Revek's paperweight, with Corin Revek being Oriana's father, whom people may know from League of Legends. But that's really it for the lootable items from the RPG game Ruined King.
Okay.
Given the fact that Riot recently revealed a new champion with unique weapons,
I
also wanted to very quickly mention 2 unique weapon types of this universe. The newest champion in League is using Natofos, which are giant hammers which you can wield as a hybrid between a shield and a fist weapon. But also, the elemental mages of
Kiana's
Ishtar
weapon
might also wield a weapon known as the Omladl, which is essentially a really sharp hula hoop.
That'd be a really cool weapon to have,
Lastly,
actually.
I forgot to mention one cool thing. In the Ruined King files, I was also able to data mine the armor and the axe of Rasa the Sunderer. But remember that the giant axe is a named item called Night Harvester.
Night Harvester.
So
That's
now,
a crazy
let's
name.
have a look at the top 3 items from this universe.
Okay.
In my opinion, among the top 3, we absolutely have to mention the Darkin weapons, which are the foundation of
like
iconic
that.
weapons
I don't know
in
how
this
they
universe.
would do that.
Remember how after the Ascended slowly turned mad and they slowly turned into the Darkin? They got out of control after they started using blood magic to enhance their own bodies? Well, after the Darkins started fighting each other for dominance and they slowly started destroying the entire planet, the Celestial Aspects realized that they should probably do something about it. And so, the Aspect of Twilight infused the weapon with its power and used it to consume the souls of the Darkin.
Yeah.
This weapon became known as the Chalikar. Now, the Chalikar is a giant crossblade that was originally wielded by an Ascended Warrior.
Is this
and
Sivir's weapon now?
Being held by an important character, so we will never see the Chalikar in our hands.
Yeah.
However, the Aspect of Twilight gave the Chalikar to humans, so that humans could craft new weapons in its image.
Okay.
And these new weapons
so we might get some of those.
The remaining Darkin who are running around the world.
Got it.
So, that's what humans did. They forged celestial weapons that absorbed the Darkin. The issue with this is that, after being absorbed, the Darkin live inside the weapons.
Yeah,
and
so like, I don't think we'd be able to use any of them.
Weapons, the Darkin could dominate their mind, take over their bodies, and essentially free themselves.
We're definitely not going to be able to.
Now, in my mind, there are only 2 ways how Riot can allow the players to hold a Darkin weapon.
Okay.
Either we find a Darkin that is so weak that even after we hold them, they can just whisper to us, but it can't really start taking over our body. Maybe just give it a bit of cosmetic corruption on our body. Or we would simply go on a legendary quest to cleanse the weapon of the Darkin's influence.
Right, I could see that too.
I know, all
like
of
as a little
this sounds
storyline.
like a nerdy talk. So let me show you some examples of the already existing Darkin weapons from
I mean, there's some
Legends of Runeterra.
crazy ones.
We have the Darkin Harpoon, which imprisoned the Darkin known as Ibaros. The Darkin Shield, containing the
I've seen a lot
Darkin
of these.
Joral.
Okay.
The Darkin Lodestone, which I assume is some kind of a trinket which contains Horazi. The Darkin Ballista that imprisoned Naganeka. Fun fact, Naganeka probably looks a bit like chicken because in theory it is possible that one of those chickens touched the ballista.
Yeah, I remember hearing this.
So Naganeka took over the body of the chicken. Then we have the Darkin Harp, which holds the really creepy, maddening Darkin Styradu.
Whoa.
Of course, there is also the legendary Scythe of Rast, which is currently being held by Kayn, who is successfully resisting Rast. There is also the Darkin Bow of Varus, the Darkin Bloodletters, which belong to the one who came up with the idea of
cool
using
weapons.
blood magic, Zolani.
But we're not going to be able to use them.
Lastly, we
There's
also
no way.
have the Darkin Halberd that contains Tarosh. We also know that later this year, Legends of Runeterra will reveal even more Darkin.
Well,
We are
that's for
still waiting for
Nefiri.
more information on Aatrox, and I can't wait to learn what the heck that Darkin monstrosity is. Is that a Darkin that took over the body of a Voidborn? Because that sounds badass. But anyway, I really like the shield, and I will probably play a tank just to get it. Anyway, on to number 2 on this list.
Okay.
When talking about legendary weapons, we have to mention Nightfall. We talked about this one a little bit when we talked about the bosses and villains of this universe. Many of you may know that Mordekaiser has the ability to forge souls into just about anything. Be it bricks that would build his kingdom in his own realm, or weapons. When Mordekaiser was summoned into the realm,
I wonder what kind of weapons
living,
we'd get from there, though.
instead of being thankful to the cultists who summoned him, he ripped out their souls and forged them into his brutal mace, which he called Nightfall. This is the giant hammer that Mordekaiser is carrying on his shoulder.
There's
And
no
with
way we would get
Mordekaiser
that, though.
Inevitably being a boss, which we absolutely
Yes, he
have
would
to
be.
deal with at
He would
some
have to
point
be.
in the future. Really, it's all his lore is about.
Yeah,
After we
true.
get to fight him,
He has to come back
drop
eventually.
Nightfall. This weapon doesn't
I
really
mean-
have any important lore. So you are not screwing anything up by giving it to the players.
Okay.
It is simply
Okay.
a badass weapon worthy of a
Okay,
legendary
okay. If
drop.
that's the case, then
I
sure.
mean, at this point, after his entire story,
The whole
this
Mordekaiser
weapon has the kill
armor
count
set, too.
of hundreds of thousands. But even that weapon is not number 1.
Viegos.
Just as Viego is the Arthas Menethil of this universe, so his legendary blade is the Frostmourne of this
Yeah,
universe.
his sword is pretty
But
cool.
I'm afraid this blade is so legendary, Riot will probably not give it to
No,
us.
there's no
So
way.
let's talk about the Blade of the Ruined King. What originally started as a simple item which you would buy in the in-game shop
Okay,
in
I didn't know
League of
that.
Legends, was eventually turned into the most legendary blade of the League of Legends universe. I mean, it's so legendary that you can buy it in Valorant. This blade
Wait, really?
used to be simply called the Blade of
Oh,
the
they'll do
King
anything to
as
get
a
more
name.
people to buy their
It
bundle
is called
packs.
Sanctity, for when this blade appears, people of Kamavor know they are safe. It has 2 very unique abilities. Sanctity is always stored in its sanctum inside Kamavor's capital, but its wielder can instantly summon it anywhere across the world. That's what you can see Viego do in the cinematics. He
Yeah, which is
not
why
conjuring
we
it
would
out
not
of
be able
thin
to
air.
have that blade.
He is simply summoning it. Its second ability is what gives the blade its power, and it's what gives the blade a second name. You see, the Blade of the King is passed down between the kings of Kamavor. The current wielder is Viego, to whom it was passed down by the Lion of Kamavor himself. But
Alvaro.
every time the blade is passed to a new owner, the blade takes a piece of the would-be king's soul. Then it either kills them on the spot, or the blade deems them worthy and they are allowed to rule Kamavor. Passing this test is not easy, and the blade claimed countless kings.
I mean, it doesn't look
before.
as cool there
That's
in the
why
3D, but
Sanctity also carries a second name, the Soul Render. Of course, because it is being passed down for generations, the blade is currently holding pieces of the souls of all the previous kings. At least, that's what we believe is the case. What we do know for
There's
sure
no way
is
we
that
would
when
use it,
Viego
though.
died, he was stabbed by his own sword, which is the blade that contains a piece of his own soul. So because his own blade couldn't claim him, that's one of the many reasons why Viego's death caused a massive explosion of undeath.
Oh.
It is the blade that is responsible for creating the Shadow Isles. And it is the blade that is going to claim us once we inevitably get to fight Viego in
Again.
the MMO.
Yeah,
Of course,
Viego would also have to come back.
You know we have to face Viego. Because you're not one of the people who skipped over the last video and you have all the context, right? And of course it's going to be up to Riot whether they decide whether they want to give us the blade or not. Unlike Nightfall, sanctity is very important for the lore.
Okay.
The souls inside the blade could push the story forward, and in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Viego's own soul in the blade was the key to destroying him. But that's
So we
an
might
issue
have
for
to
future
just
Riot to
destroy
figure
the
out.
sword.
Anyway, that is it
in
for
the
this
MMO.
video, and that's gonna be it for MMO videos for a while.
Cool.
Many people ask
Very nice.
me if I feel like I'm oversaturating the MMO videos.
I don't think so.
And I'd like to say, no. So
There's a
far,
lot,
I am
you know?
only showing people what actually exists in the universe. Nothing more, nothing less. But from this point on, if I dive into other topics, I feel like there wouldn't be enough content. And I would have to start going into heavy hypotheticals.
Yeah,
And
true.
that's not really what I want to do. I
True.
want to show people
Fair
the
enough.
beauty of Riot's universe. And I want to show people that League's lore is really good. And it's been really good for about 7 years now. So, because this is going to be my last MMO video for a while, in a classic Riot style, I want to leave you with a montage. A supercut of some of the amazing places which we know exist in this universe.
Sure.
It
I'm
is
down.
going to be
Let's go.
nothing but official art from this
Take me on a
universe.
journey.
And
Let's do
should
it.
the day come, and should we see the MMO come to fruition in like 8 years, these are gonna be
I
the
feel like
places
longer
I'll
than
go
that.
out and look for. So thank you for watching, thank you for reacting, and I'll see you in a decade.
All right, let's take a look at some of the artwork here. Yeah, I mean, listen, I already know from the lore that we've learned over the past year and a half or so, MMO for League of Legends would be fantastic. There's so much lore, so much world building going on that it would just be perfect as an MMO. I mean, I let them take their time. MMOs are not easy to make, and especially keeping players. I know League of Legends already has like a big player base, and I could see it just maintaining its player base because of the popularity of the world. So I think it would retain players as long as the game's decent. But you know, you have these 3 other MMOs you got to compete with. You got Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, and then World of Warcraft. I mean, those are the 3 biggest as far as I know. Obviously, there are a ton of other MMOs out there, but yeah, this was a great video. I really enjoyed going through the individual regions and everything like that. I want to hear from you guys what your favorite region you think. If you had to choose one region where you were using the armor and the weapons from them, which one would you choose? Let me think about which one. So we have Shurima, Ionia, the Freljord, Nexus, Demacia. I mean, I still really like kind of like the look of the Demacian armor, even though Demacia itself kind of sucks, right? Like, I know they do suck. But like the blue, I don't know, maybe there's something about the blue and the white armor that looks really cool to me. But then when we go over to the Freljord, there's the armor like this from Lysandro's people. And then there's like this animalistic type of like shaman kind of armor that also looks really good. There's like some things about Nexus that I liked. I do like the theme of like red and black and just like this darkness to it. I do kind of like that if I were to make like kind of like a dark character. You know, I actually thought I would like the Ionian armor quite a bit, but I actually don't think there really is too much going on. Obviously, we have Piltover and Zaun as well. I forgot to mention that one. But Piltover and Zaun, I feel like, here was my thought when we were watching the Piltover and Zaun section. Usually in MMOs, they usually have like your armor when you're actually like in battle and stuff, and then they have like if you want, you have like your armor when you're in like the major cities and stuff. If you want to have like a more casual look as you're walking around the cities and stuff, I felt like more like Piltover and Zaun armor would be something you might wear like when you're in the cities. Like for example, like Piltover like clothing would probably be really high class and cool looking, and I think that would be like something that I would wear if I'm walking around like some of the major cities personally. Ionia, you know, I thought I would like Ionia a little bit better. I really didn't think I found anything all that cool. There is this guy that I said looks like the Emperor Palpatine's like guards and stuff like that. Shurima's a lot of gold. I did like the celestial weapons there in that image, but nothing really stood out to me about Shurima's armor specifically. So I think I actually am gonna say I like Demasia's armor the most, which is kind of crazy for me to say. But I think also behind that, we got the Freljord, and then like some aspect of like the Piltover Zaun stuff, I think would be kind of cool. What I really realized, I mean, I knew this, but like what I realized is, I mean, every individual champion is kind of wielding some pretty unique weapon, right? You have to have a champion wielding a unique weapon in order for them to be kind of cool, right? It adds an aspect to their champion. The other big question mark, of course, was Darken weapons. There's something like Darken weapons are like such a big part of the lore when it comes to Runeterra that they would have to do something kind of with the Darken weapons, but there's no way we would be wielding one, right? Like, I don't know. What are you guys' thoughts on Darken weapons in the world of the MMO? Like, what could they do with that? I have no idea personally, but I don't know. It would have to be some sort of aspect of Darken weapons in the game, right? By far though, my favorite for some reason is Diana's Crescent Blade. I don't know. I really like the design of the Crescent Blade and like the curved blades that they were showing as well in the other artworks, just like to represent the moon, right, of the curvature of the moon and everything. I think the Lunari blades are really cool personally. So those are kind of like my favorite style, I think, out of all of the weapons that we saw throughout this. Of course, there's like the legendary weapons from like other places too that are really cool, but I did really like the Lunari stuff. If there's any weapons that you guys would love to see from the Riot MMO that wasn't mentioned in Necrit's video, please let me know in the comments. I think this is a great discussion of what we could possibly get in the future. And, you know, it makes sense that there's not really going to be any more MMO videos from Necrit because there's not much else he can talk about. They would all just be hypotheticals at this point. So we really just have to kind of wait for Riot to finally release the MMO, which I know we just heard recently. They're kind of going in the dark about it because they're just working on it and they're not going to tell us anything more. So I'm real excited to play the MMO, but who knows when that's going to come out. I'll probably be in my freaking 40s by that time that game comes out. So, all right, everybody, thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel, leave a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in the next reaction. Bye.